You walk into a massive aquarium. Glass tunnels, glowing jellyfish, sharks gliding silently overhead. But one thing's missing. The star of every shark documentary. The one name even people who fear fish can recognize. The great white. You've probably never seen one in captivity. And that's not a coincidence. It's not that people haven't tried. It's that every single attempt has failed. Back in 1955, the Steinhardt Aquarium in San Francisco brought in a young great white shark. It lasted less than 24 hours. Since then, attempts have been made all over the world, from Japan's Okinawa Chirami Aquarium to the famous Monterey Bay Aquarium in California. And while some of these sharks survived for a few days, maybe even weeks, none made it long-term. The longest one ever lasted? About 6 months. In 2004, Monterey Bay managed to keep a juvenile great white alive for 198 days. It was a major achievement. Scientists studied its behavior, tried different feeding techniques, and even had a custom-built transport tank. But eventually, the shark had to be released because it started refusing food and injuring itself on the walls. That's the pattern every time. They stop eating. They get stressed. They injure themselves. And then they die. Quietly. Mysteriously. No big dramatic failure. Just a slow decline that no one has figured out how to stop. And the question is, why? Why is it that we can keep whale sharks, which are even bigger, in massive tanks, but not great whites? Why can aquariums successfully care for hammerheads, tiger sharks, and dozens of other species, but the great white always slips through our grasp? What is it about this animal that refuses to be contained? To figure that out, you'll need to understand how they live. Because the secret isn't in how we keep them, it's in what they were built to do. You might think a bigger tank would fix the problem. Just give the shark more room, right? But here's the thing. When it comes to great whites, it's not about space. It's about motion. Constant, unrelenting motion. Great white sharks are what's known as obligate ram ventilators. That means they can't breathe unless they're moving. They don't have muscles to pump water over their gills the way other fish do. Instead, they rely on swimming to force oxygen-rich water through their gills. If they stop swimming, even for a short time, they suffocate. Now imagine putting that kind of animal in a glass tank. Even the biggest aquarium can't match the open ocean. Great whites are used to swimming long, straight paths across entire coastlines. In the wild, they can travel over 12,000 miles in a year. But in a tank, they're met with hard turns and invisible walls. It's like trying to keep a fighter jet inside a hallway. They get disoriented. They bump into walls. Some sharks in captivity have been seen scraping their noses and fins, sometimes to the point of injury. And they don't understand why it's happening. There's no predator chasing them, no prey to hunt, no current to follow, just a dead end everywhere they turn. And the problem isn't just physical, it's internal. Their entire body is designed around that need to move. Their muscles, their metabolism, even their brain, it's all wired for motion. Take that away, and you don't just confuse them, you unravel them. Some scientists believe this is one reason great whites spiral into stress so quickly in captivity. They're trapped in a situation their instincts can't solve. They keep moving, but they're going nowhere. No escape, no relief. Just walls. So even if you had a tank the size of a stadium, you'd still be missing something crucial: direction. Great whites aren't just built to swim, they're built to go somewhere. And when the ocean is endless, that somewhere is always just ahead. But in a tank, it stops. And so eventually does the shark. So let's say somehow, your great white shark isn't crashing into the walls. It's swimming. It's moving. You've given it enough space to breathe. Problem solved. Not even close. Now comes the next issue: feeding it. And this is where things take an even stranger turn, because in almost every recorded attempt, captive great white sharks refuse to eat. Entirely. You could lower a freshly caught tuna into the tank, or even dangle a seal decoy soaked in blood. Doesn't matter. The shark ignores it. Sometimes it just circles the tank. Other times, it sinks to the bottom. Silent. Still. Deteriorating. Scientists believe it's not about the food. It's about the stress. Great whites aren't scavengers. They're precision hunters. In the wild, they ambush prey from below, relying on split-second timing, temperature cues, even the movement of waves. In a tank, those hunting conditions vanish. There's no real chase, no surprise, just a glass box and a hand-delivered meal that doesn't behave like prey. And without that mental stimulation, the shark doesn't recognize it as food. But it goes deeper than instincts. When a wild animal is put into an unfamiliar, stressful environment, something dangerous can happen. Capture myopathy. It's a condition where stress chemicals flood the bloodstream. Muscles break down. Organs begin to fail. The animal becomes too weak to survive, even if there's nothing physically wrong with it. That's what aquariums have seen with great whites. Even when they're offered ideal conditions, they slowly shut down. Internally, mentally. Sometimes they starve themselves. Sometimes they die for no clear reason at all. And you can't fix that with better lighting or quieter crowds. You're not just battling biology. You're battling fear, confusion, the sudden loss of a world they've spent their entire lives adapting to. Because when a great white stops eating, it's not just hunger. It's something deeper, a system that's no longer able to function, a predator lost in a place where nothing makes sense. At this point, you might be wondering, why can we keep so many other sharks in captivity, but not great whites? After all, aquariums house tiger sharks, hammerheads, sandbars, some of them huge, all of them predators. So what makes the great white so different? It comes down to how they live and how they think. Most shark species are coastal. They patrol reefs, bays, and relatively small territories. But great whites? They're long-distance travelers, migrators, solitary roamers that disappear across oceans and reappear thousands of miles away. One great white was tracked swimming from California to Hawaii and back, over 12,000 miles in less than a year. That's not a fish following a tide. That's a navigator responding to complex cues we still don't fully understand. And that's just the start. Great whites aren't just following instinct. They're reacting to water temperature, prey patterns, even the Earth's magnetic fields. Some scientists believe they use a kind of internal compass, a sensitivity to the planet's natural energy. When you take that shark and drop it into a still, artificial environment, you're not just removing space. You're stripping away its entire guidance system. That disconnection creates a cascade of problems. They can't navigate. They can't hunt. They don't even behave the same way. Captive great whites move in awkward patterns, bump into things, or float listlessly. Their behaviors become erratic, unnatural, not because they're sick, but because their internal programming no longer fits the environment they've been placed in. And then there's something even harder to define: awareness. Some researchers suspect that great whites possess a higher level of cognitive processing than we've given them credit for. Their problem-solving, their ability to track specific prey for days, and even the way they approach boats or objects in the water suggests curiosity, decision-making. In captivity, that complexity turns against them. Without stimulation, without challenge, their systems break down. Not just physically, but mentally. Because unlike most sharks, great whites don't just survive in the ocean. They belong to it. And when you pull them out, even with the best of intentions, they don't adapt. They fade. We often think of the ocean as just water, a place to swim, fish, explore. But for a great white shark, the ocean isn't just home, it's everything. It's their hunting ground, their navigation system, their breathing space. It's the one environment where every part of their biology makes perfect sense. And no matter how advanced our technology gets, we haven't come close to replicating it. The Monterey Bay Aquarium came the closest. They spent years developing custom transport tanks, carefully controlling water temperature and oxygen levels, even designing an exhibit built just for great whites. And for a moment, it looked like they cracked the code. Their shark swam. It ate. It survived longer than any other. But slowly, the same pattern returned. Loss of appetite, injury, decline. They released the shark back into the wild, and it recovered. It was the best possible outcome, and also the clearest message. Great whites don't fail in captivity because we're careless. They fail because captivity doesn't match what they are. You can give them food, space, even perfect conditions. But you can't give them the horizon. You can't give them freedom. Not the kind they need. Because a great white isn't just a body in motion, it's motion with purpose. It swims to hunt, to breathe, to survive, and maybe even just to move. Some creatures fit inside our glass walls. They adjust. They adapt. But the great white? It disappears. It fades behind the glass because the ocean isn't something you can bottle. It's not a display. It's alive. And it takes something alive to live in it. So the reason we don't see great white sharks in zoos may not be about what we're doing wrong, but who they are. Maybe we weren't meant to keep them. Maybe the ocean already knew that, and it's just taken us this long to catch up.